Hello and welcome to Sports Hub. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Modern Ntapechela Sinkala. Today I'm featuring someone who has been a sports reporter and now into sports PR. I'll introduce him shortly, so make sure you stay with us. Feel free to participate on the program by calling 0211 25 30 25 or 0211 25 08 43. You can also send us a WhatsApp message. Remember, this one is only for WhatsApp. The number is 0955 20 2904. 0955 20 2904, only for WhatsApp. Then if you're into social media, in terms of Facebook, you can send a message on Sports Hub Facebook page or Modern Sinkala Sports. On How Much You Know a Sportsmen and Women segment, last week I asked you to tell me the top scorer at the 2017 Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations, which Zambia won. Let's see some of the messages that came through. So that was the question, yes, that I asked you last week. And yes, a number of you attempted. So this one says, it was Patson Daka. This is Regan Mushai from Kapiri, Central Province. Okay, well, Kapiri well represented. Nice one. Let's see the next one. This one says, Patson Daka, Edward Chirufia, Luther Singh, Grace Moyo from Charleston, Lusaka. Wow. Great to hear from a lady. This is so encouraging. At least women are also following sports. Then this one says, Patson Daka, Edward Chirufia, and Luther S, both at 4 goals. Case Kaundula. Right, thank you so much. That's a Case Kaundula. Do we still have more messages? Good evening, good program. Keep it up. I'm Jacob from Petauke, Eastern Province. Wow, Eastern Province represented, and we were just in Chipata just over the weekend for a boxing tournament. So this is great, and we also had another message from Gracious Mudenda of Kamanga, Lusaka, who says Luther Singh, Edward Chirufia, Patson Daka. So at least 2 females participating on this program. So you were all correct. Well done. Yes, on 4 goals, Luther Singh of South Africa, Patson Daka, Zambia, and also Edward Chirufia, Zambia. But I have another question for you today, and this one says, who was the first Football Association of Zambia FAZ Communications Manager? Who was the first Football Association of Zambia FAZ Communications Manager? The number to call on is 0211 25 30 25, 0211 25 08 43. WhatsApp is 0955 20 29 04. Facebook is Sports Hub Facebook page or Modern Sinkala Sports. That's the question. Who was the first Football Association of Zambia FAZ Communications Manager? Right, we'll be so happy to hear from you. Let's look at what happened over the weekend. We start with boxing. So the Oriental Quarries International Boxing Tournament was held in Chipata, Eastern Province, at Chipata Golf Club. I was so impressed with the number of people that turned up to witness that boxing tournament, which was there on Saturday. So the results were as follows. So the first bout was a female bout between Lina Kasweka of Zambia and Ndau Chilimba of Malawi. So this one saw Lina winning via technical knockout in the first round. Lina was so good in this fight. Remember, these fights were shown on TV3, which is channel 004 on Topstar, this same channel. Gracious Simwalizi of Zambia took on Yusuf Ali of Malawi, and Gracious won on unanimous point decision after 8 rounds. The other bout was between Mumbela Mukuni of Zambia and Obet Makaika of Malawi. Mumbela Mukuni won on unanimous point decision after 6 rounds. Then debutant in professional boxing, Mbachi Kaonga of Zambia faced Aristote Ntumba Kabeya of Congo DR, and Mbachi won on unanimous point decision after 4 rounds. Though there were complaints from Aristotle Tumbakabeya that he thought it was 8 rounds, but it only ended in 4 rounds because he was just warming up and he was intending to finish the fight around in the 6th round or so, but it ended before he could to charge up. So that was Kabeya's complaint. Then the final fight was between David Muali versus Aubry Masamba of Malawi. And Aubry was so good for Masamba, he won via technical knockout in the 1st round. So that's what happened in Chipata, Eastern Province in terms of boxing. So from boxing, we go to rugby in the Week 8 National League. And the results were as follows. On Saturday, it was Konkola 23, Ndola Wanderers 6, Mufulia Leopards 29, Green Eagles 3. KPF 54, Lusaka 3, Red Arrows 33, and Diggers 8. Wow, it looks like the race is getting tighter and tighter in the National League of the Zambia Rugby Union. And finally, in terms of results, let's look at an international friendly, which was played on Saturday, 25th June. It was Zambia Women National Football Team 6 and a Division 2 side in the Women's League of Morocco, Phoenix Marrakesh FC 0. So well done to the Copper Queens. So that was one of the preparatory matches, and they are scheduled to play another one on the 28th against Uganda. So we wish them all the best. Their first match in the Africa Women Cup of Nations, which is kicking off on Saturday. This Saturday, they are playing against Cameroon. It's a very tough match, but we wish them all the very best. And talking about that, let's play the Copper Queens a song to give them morale as they prepare for the Africa Women Cup of Nations.
Masamba tupondo chachine umfa vuvuzela chachine msoli wa chisungu chachine kulumbe wa Zambia walulavu opponenti nalala chachine kipa na shipula chachine nasi mkimana chachine seni tubalonge chachine Zambia balange bazambia tupondo chachine umva vuvuzela chachine soli wa chisungu chachine kulumbe bazambia walulavu wabone ntinalala chachine kipa na shipula chachine nasi mdimana chachiseni tubalonge chachine Zambia balange
One J there with Vuvuzela. It's great to know that some of those players actually are with the national team. Some of them were very young and now they've grown and they've matured. And too bad, one of the coaches there is late, Angela Sunga. She is no longer with us, but those were the, some of the pioneers of Zambian women's football. Time for me to introduce my guest in the studio for today. He is a journalist by profession. He worked as a sports reporter and now the Football Association of Zambia FAZ Communications Manager. I'm talking about Sydney Mungala. Sydney, welcome to Sports Hub. And that's Sydney there. We'll see his ball juggling skills at the end of the program. He talks about football, so we'll see whether he'll be able to. Thank you very much for coming. You're welcome, and make yourself comfortable.
Thank you very much, Modin, and obviously I'm having a good evening with you here.
Indeed, very good evening. So for starters, let's know where Sydney Mungala is coming from. Your background, where did you grow up from? When was that? And which area?
Well, Sydney Mungala was basically born 37 years ago. I'm turning 38 years in the next few days. My birthday is on 12th July.
Wow.
I was born in Choma at a place called Popota. I think it's like 10 kilometers from town. And it's basically a farming area. And my father, Mr. Shadrach Mungala, was a teacher. And my mother, Mary Chanda, was just a housewife. So I was born in Popota area, and since my father was a teacher, he was teaching at Popota Basic School. I obviously started school in the same area, and I was at the same school from grade 1 to 7. Grade 7, I wrote my grade 7 in 96. And I was selected to go to St. Mark's Secondary School in Mapanza area, which is Choma. But also I have a very strong Catholic background. I was very active in the church. So we did the government exam, and also there's a school called Mukasa Minor Seminary School in Choma, which used to be run by the Jesuits. So we also used to do a separate exam. So at the time I was in grade 7, there was an assistant parish priest, Choma Parish, who later became Bishop for Monze Diocese, who is immediate patriarch. So he used to come for Mass. You know, when you are in an outstation, if you are Catholic, you are not the main parish. So I used to be very active in church activities, particularly reading the Bible, like in church.
Okay.
So he saw me when he came to conduct Mass. So I was like doing the readings. And then after church, he called me. He kind of blessed me. He said, okay, I like what you do. It happened a couple of times. Then he told me, no, I think instead of going to this school that you want to, I want to give you an opportunity to go and go to Mukasa Seminary, which was basically a formative school for people who want to be priests. So you do your school, and then the idea is at the end of the day, they can nurture your vocation to be a priest. So I also made it to Mukasa, and the results for the Mukasa Seminary came out before the government results. Okay. So my mind was already made when I went to write that exam. And the way the school was structured, we had 9 dioceses in Zambia. Now we have 10 provinces. So they used to conduct exams across the 9 provinces, and then they could get maybe 3 boys from each of the dioceses, and then they bring you in one environment. And it was very competitive. In my time, I think in grade 8, we were 17 of us. We had colleagues coming from as far as Solwezi, Kitwe, Chipata, all these places we were convened in one place. So I went to Mukasa, did my grade 8 to 9 at Mukasa, and then proceeded grade 10 to 12. At the point of going to do grade 12 exams, there's a point where they encourage young boys. They will invite maybe a priest to talk to us, open up possibilities that when you finish school, do you really want to carry on with the possibility of being a priest, or you are thinking about other things? So the idea was always that I think I'm going to be a priest. You know, when you are young, your mind is kind of, you are exposed to few things, and if you are growing up in a rural setup, your inspiration is probably a teacher, and if you are able to see maybe there's a clinic, maybe you see a clinical officer or what, those are the kind of inspirations that you get. Yeah, and obviously the priest it was a very attractive calling. So I almost thought maybe I should give it a try, but I kind of thought better. The more I got to that point, they will invite you to think through, they ask you to pray. So I decided I'm going to maybe put this on hold, because there's even an idea that you can go and come back. So I thought maybe I needed to do something more exciting. I always had this idea of writing. I could write stuff, put them in a piece to paper. Even at school, we could write things, you post things. And I was a bit addicted to newspapers. So even when my father went into town most of the time, I think the best gift for me was always a newspaper. And that time, I think the post was very strong. So I always looked forward to him coming with a copy of the post. At school, we had the staff room where teachers could actually put their newspapers there. And grade 10, 11, 12, I think we had this habit of when they leave the newspapers lying there, we could get them, you take them. My room was more like a library, the dormitory there where we were.
You would cut pieces. Yes,
I would put everywhere, and I could regenerate some articles. So that's where the journalism passion kind of got sparked on. And
so no person in particular inspired you? It was through the newspaper?
Yeah, it was actually things that I was reading, writing. I could imagine things. And then TV, obviously, it came later in life. It wasn't really something that was always there when I was growing up. But it also just gave me a bit of insight in terms of what the world looked like on the other side. Like I said, it's an environment where you don't see so many things. Your inspirations are limited, so your possibilities become exposed. So when I started looking at newspapers, I knew that I could generate some of these things. So I decided I wanted to do journalism, and that time I think I was told that you could either apply to the University of Zambia or even Horn College. Unfortunately, when I came to apply at the University of Zambia, that time Mascom was really very, very competitive, and I think the class was about 13 people in that class. I applied, and then my friend advised, are you sure? You know, because I think my results then were like 15 points then. I think Mascom was already taking people like maybe the 11, 9 going down. So they told me, no, I think it's going to be just apply in the School of Humanities, then you will see. But my mind was just, no, let me
just want to do Mascom.
Yeah, so I applied, and unfortunately I was not picked. So even when I was not picked, they told me, no, you can still apply, channel your application to these other possibilities. So I just said, no, I'm just going to wait. So in the process of waiting, I think eventually I went to Evenhorn College and I applied even there. So that's how I ended up going to Evenhorn College. And I was lucky that the time I went to Evenhorn College, which was 2004, the class had a mix of some of us were direct entrance from school, and we also had guys who were already working. I think we had Harriet Nene in that class. She was already a big personality in radio. There was Kennedy Gondwe, who was already a big personality in the print media. We also had many others. I think there was Joseph Nyirenda. I believe he was also already doing stuff. I think he was with Chengelo then. So we kind of got to learn from those that were there. And of course, some of us didn't know so many things. And I think eventually looking at these guys, we got to learn a lot of things.
And among the people you've mentioned, Harriet Nene, unfortunately, is late.
Yeah.
Joseph Nyirenda is one of those that is in our newsroom now.
You see, yeah. Yeah.
TV1 newsroom.
Yeah. So,
okay.
And those were the people that kind of provided insight in terms of what was already going on in the industry. And some of us, at least we got mentored by some of these people. Even at that stage, I remember Kennedy obviously could come with a copy of the Post newspaper because he was staying in school. So we could stray into his room, we could read, and then whenever there were things we needed to get clarity on, he could provide that level of experience that he was already doing. And eventually, I think as we got towards third year, we were beginning to run through the possibilities. Now, like, okay, what am I going to do? So for me, I think I always knew that I was always going to work for the Post from a very long time. Like,
okay.
I could see, okay, this is how people write, and I could like, okay, I think I can do this. So I think meeting Kennedy, it just became like I don't know whether I can call it.
So it was like a springboard.
Yeah. So, and we also kind of got along because he was also into sports. So eventually when I completed school, he was already writing for, apart from the main paper, there was the Education Post, which was focused on youth stories. So he asked me to say, okay, when you finish, if you want to give this a try, I'll give you an opportunity, I'll take you there, introduce you to these guys. But the only condition that I'll give you is that you should really be, what is going to happen after that, it's really up to you. Me, I'll only provide a platform. And I said, okay, for me at that point, it wasn't really, I wasn't even worried about anything. And true to his word, he actually introduced me to the then editor, Yvonne Shwemba was the editor of the Education Post. And she just told me, okay, go and bring me 3 stories. Like, just go and write, then we'll see. So I went, I think I did 3 stories. Unfortunately, those days we used to do those stories. I didn't have a computer, I didn't have anywhere to do the story. But I had a friend who had also done Mascom. I think he's Dr. Basil Hamso, whom we were together at Mukasa. Of course, he was ahead. So he was actually also getting started with lecturing at Mascom. So he had a desktop, which he said, no, you can use this, then let's see how it goes. So my first story I did, and I walked from, I think he used to stay somewhere in Ngombe to the Post with my stories on a flash. So
not a floppy disk in those days.
Unfortunately, I think there was, it's actually waste. What I experienced was actually waste because When I got there, they got the stories. I thought they were on the flash. Then they put on the computer. It was a virus. So,
Oh, no.
yeah, so it meant that now I had to go back. So, so I walked back to Ngombe, and then we tried to do some magic. I think we had to save the story in a notepad. And I went back. Fortunately, at least the stories were able to be accessed. And then I think that got me started. And I even still remember my first story. I think it was March 14, 2007. I think it was 2007. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was my first story. It was about a young boy who was, I think 5. He was playing drums in church.
Okay.
And that was and it was a cover story. So it meant so much for me. And
you didn't have any challenges, like maybe the editor spiking your stories? All the 3 stories passed?
Fortunately, all the 3 stories passed, and I still remember them. There was that one, and then there was a lady at Muali. I think they had just done the reintroduction policy, where if someone is pregnant, they go. I think there was one lady like that, and then that was my other story. Then the third one, I think UNZA was giving opportunities to students to work whilst on vacation, and then they were paying. I think those were my first 3 stories, and they just went on like that. And the editor was very happy. She encouraged me, and then she said, no, I think you write very well. I didn't struggle with going through your work. And so they basically gave me an opportunity to explore. And that time, the desk was very strong. I think there was Joseph Mwenda then, who was doing more of weekend post. I think he used to do a column. And then he was also on education post. There used to be Ruanga Mwiru, who was the senior most on the desk that time. Then after me, there was Alan Mulenga, who came. I think he came maybe a few weeks apart. So those were the people that I started working with. After that, I think we had a training program where the post used to invite journalists from other institutions. I was already inside, so I was recommended to be on the training program. And it came to a point where now, okay, which desk are you going to be on? So I think for me, sports was a very easy choice for me at that time. And I went on the sports desk, and the sports desk was very strong those days. The editor was Mr. Joseph Chanda. I think you remember from the column.
The late Joseph Chanda.
The late Joseph Chanda, who used to do the column from the terraces. He was the editor. Then there was Augustine Mkoka, who was the second. Then there was Kalumiana, Namatama Mundia, Abigail Tsenga, who is Abigail Chaponda now, Prudence Piri. We were joined later by
all the big names that you've mentioned.
So it was a very strong desk, and to actually get your story published, you really needed to really work very hard, because I think you could see that the big stories were already like allocated by experience. You couldn't do national team. I think you find that space was already taken. You couldn't do the FAZ beat. There were people who were already on the FAZ beat, Minister of Sport. So I devised a way. I think I saw that I could survive. I found space within that building. Boxing for me was my entry point into boxing and futsal. So we teamed up with Angela Ntentawunga, who was the photographer. She was also getting onto the desk. So we could go, I could do the story, then she does the picture. So if she does a nice picture, it obviously meant that even the story was going to go.
Yes.
So we kind of complemented each other. Eventually, we did futsal stories. They began to appear, and people started to get interested. Other media started following futsal. Those days, they used to do it from the showgrounds. They followed through, and we were put on probation. Fortunately, just after the 3 months of probation, Angela and myself got confirmed.
Ah, wow.
Yeah. So unfortunately, my boss at Education Post still wanted me to go back, even after I had gone to the sports desk. So I requested for a bit more time to be on the sports desk, which she allowed. And I eventually got space on the, started doing football stories. I think there was an Africa Cup in 2008. Augustine had traveled. Karumiana was doing golf. So for local sports stories, I eventually found that they could allow me to do football stories. I did one football story. Okay, this is good. And those days, what I used to do is I could follow foreign-based players from Zambia who were doing very well. I used to follow Jacob, I think, a lot. Jacob Mulenga, Jonas Sakwaha was in Europe, I think Mayuka. So I could look for money like buy talk time, just make a direct phone call. I was not taking chances.
Like your own talk time?
Yes, I could just go with a knock off. Yes, Andrew Sinkara, we used to talk a lot. I could just get home, okay, I take a risk, I buy talk time, I call him. Okay, what's going on? How are things going? So when I come for the diary, obviously people will be talking about things that are happening. So I said, no, I spoke to Andrew. This is his take on ABCD. So those kind of stories eventually found space on the back page. And I developed
because they were exclusive.
Yeah, so I developed a relationship with these players. If he has scored 2-3 games, he'll call you, you speak, he'll give you a story. That's how I eventually got to the point where I think going to 2010, like I knew that any big football story, these guys were now comfortable to allow me to do the story. They kind of found that I made life easy for them. They were no longer chasing these stories. They could just send you and say, oh, okay, there's this, sometimes I'll go. So I realized that if I worked hard and pushed myself, then these people trust me more to do these stories. And eventually, I worked hard enough. Even the institution itself began to recognize that, okay, maybe this guy has got something.
And you were very tiny then. We'll be able to see some of the photos when you were very tiny as a sports reporter.
Yeah. So I pushed myself very hard. And at the time that Hevrena, I think, must have left after the 2010 Africa Cup. So Zambia was found in a space where they were looking for a coach. And I stumbled on that story where Dario Bonetti, I think he had come with 5 other possibilities that he wanted to work with. So he came. There was an assignment at State House, not sports related. So a colleague had gone there and taken a picture. So he said, but there's this. So I started following that story. So I learned that there was a process of recruiting a coach that was going on. And I picked some pieces, tried to package it. I pushed it, and I think I remember that time Augustine had gone to the World Cup, 2010 World Cup, in South Africa. So I sent him the stories. I've got this story. How did you get this story? so I remember, I said, okay, this is how the events have gone. I said, okay, let's see. So I did the story. It was a big story, and it also kind of shook people who didn't know what was going on. The next one, I even got the figures. I think there was a lot of issues around how much money they were going to pay Bonetti and his assistants. I did the story, and I got people from, no, you shouldn't have published this. We are still working on one. So eventually, I ran with that story, and I got to a point where even the coach himself, when he eventually came, he could call me, no, come, there's ABCD. When he's got problems, he could call me, this is what is going on. So I know you can publish this or wait for this. I had that kind of relationship. And eventually, I think I found my space, and I stayed on up to 2011. I think I stayed on up to 2011. And at that point, I was even privileged to have covered the World Cup for women, which was in Germany. And even that, it was something that was, the German government had run an open kind of scholarship for someone to go there for 14 days. And we had to write stuff around the World Cup, and then eventually that's how I was picked. And it was a very good experience, and I think it was one of the satisfying moments, like in my early career. Basically, that's where that's where I'm coming from.
Wow, it's a long story. So I wanted to say, who inspired you to go into sports? Have you been a sportsman before, or maybe when you were at school, were you participating in any sports activities?
You'll be very surprised that I've never really been a sports person. Yes, I've had the interest. I've played. But my father was a very good runner, like in his school days, and he went to Chawzwanga. He had some records there that he was very good. Then he eventually took up refereeing. So he was a teacher and a referee. He did actually officiate games then up to Division 1. So what he used to do was when he's going to officiate games, basically we are a family of 6, like two girls, 4 boys. So our eldest brother is the only one who played football at a very serious level, such that he even played for, there used to be a team in Choma called Kabebia United.
Okay.
Yeah, he played, but he didn't go beyond because I think people felt football was going to distract him from, so he was discouraged. So my father could take us, when my brother left, then my sister, so there's myself, who is the 3rd born, and then the one who follows me, we are kind of 2 years apart. So if he takes you to watch a game this weekend, and by the way, that's like on a bicycle. So he say next weekend it's you, the other weekend I'm taking. So the same Independence Stadium where Green Eagles plays from. So he could carry us. Those days there used to be teams like Choma United, SPCMU, a lot of those teams. So he used to take us, and then we could go when they've got their meetings for referees. He will take you, you listen through, you watch what is happening, and then he takes you to a real game situation. So that's where the interest as a spectator got from.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Okay, let me pick up a caller. We have Kennedy from, unfortunately, he's gone. Kennedy from Chidabombe. Call us back. The numbers are crawling on the screen. But Sydney, I saw you in a football jersey, and you were like in the thick of things, like playing. Was that a Madala's football?
Well, yes, that was social football. At work, we used to have that program, but I think most of us got busy. We no longer play that often. But I did play football, but not to a level where I was part of a competitive setup. Because even at high school, I used to train, yes, but I never really considered myself one to make the team. So if you were having 11 players, you should count me. You could have counted me to be the 12th player. And I used to just encourage the guys, and sometimes I could help them with tips. I could tell them what I was seeing. So even at school, they knew that if they wanted to follow how well teams were doing, and also you could be sure that if there was a Champions League game those days, you know that I would be one of the people who would be out of bounds to go and watch a football match. But it got so good that we even had teachers who recognized that our interest in football was so much that they could accommodate us to go and watch a game, which was illegal, into their home. They said, oh, come and watch. You can come, but please, if they catch you, don't say that we want to watch for.
Okay. Yeah. So Sydney, taking you back to the days of you being a reporter, did you encounter any challenges like where because you used to do some investigative stories, you leak stories that are not leaked yet? Did you find yourself in problems where maybe you're even sued or maybe you're in big trouble?
Well, I think most of the time it was really difficult, but it worked both as a motivation and its advantage, because there was a point where, because of the kind of stories that we did, people in establishment like at Football House, they felt that maybe we didn't need to be accommodated in terms of even normal news coverage. When they are giving out team lists, you could find that they had a list of favorite media houses or media personalities. They could give them these lists, and then the following day you're going for a press briefing, the team list is already out. And it was so bad that sometimes I remember covering an AGM in Kabwe, where I think it was before 2010, I think 2010. In the midst of the football problems, we went to it was Zambezi Sauce Lodge, So we were just entering the venue, and then people were looking for me, but they didn't know who I was or how I looked like. So I remember Pastor Peter Makembo was chased, like I was right behind him. They chased him, and then they had to ask the person who dropped him to pick him up and go. So as I was walking, I said, where is this guy? Where is this guy? And I remember Xavier Manchinshi then from the Times of Zambia told me, these guys are looking for you here. So if they just notice that you are here, it's not going to be safe for you. So he said, okay, just follow me. So he held me by the hand, and then so he ushered me into it, because then they knew him, and he was a friendly guy. So I sat through that meeting without making any movement, because I sat behind the speaker, because they had those big speakers. Yeah. So, but after that AGM, if you remember, that's the AGM that had a lot of issues around fake delegates. There was Magrosa there, who was not even. So it was arising from that AGM, and then eventually people started chasing us from these events. Accreditation, obviously, was an issue. I remember going for the Africa Cup in 2013 in South Africa. I had applied for accreditation. Unfortunately, I was very surprised when I received the reply that no, your accreditation has been rejected, and you should not be seen within 100 meters of the stadium. So just the way that was structured, it was very suspicious to me, because I didn't think that even if they didn't want you near an event, I think they were not going to write using that strong language. So I just decided to go even without being accredited. So I traveled with Kalumiana, who was a fellow journalist then, and we went to the accreditation center, and I think I was sitting next to him. They went to the system, they found his name, gave him his card. So it was my turn. I presented my credentials. Then the gentleman who was said, so, my friend, tell me something. In your country, is everything okay in your country? I said, what do you mean? But I knew what was coming. So I said, no, okay, I'm coming. So he went and consulted, he came back. I don't think you can get your card from here. So now I realized that I traveled all the way now to just go back. So now he went and consulted, said, okay, I'll give you the card, but if anyone comes to ask you, please don't tell them you got a card from me. And you know, even my name was misspelled, like Mungala. Inside there was Nigeria. So I couldn't take back the card to say you made a mistake. So I moved with that card up to the time
the
that
whole tournament. I see. Okay, so, let's now fast forward to Football Association of Zambia. You're now manager, you're the third FAZ Communications Manager. How has been your experience?
Well, I think very good. Obviously, it's not the easiest of responsibilities. It's a very difficult situation because you wake up, there are different situations that are presented to you, and you always have to find a way to keep the FAZ image clean, or at least you must try and provide clarifications where it is necessary. But you must also appreciate that before I became communications manager, I worked before other people. I worked with Desmond Katongo, who was not just a workmate. I think he was a colleague outside FAZ.
And I said you are the third. Actually, you are the fourth.
Yeah, so you see?
Fourth.
So Desmond worked together. Obviously, he decided to try out a different challenge. Then I also worked under Mwazi Chanda, who is still around, although not exact in football. So sometimes you learn to do your job better through observing the way other people handle different situations. So I kind of benefited from the experiences of working with these two people. Obviously, their working style was different. It wasn't something that people expected would take this long, because people expect you, okay, how long do you think you will last in this position? And they will tell you, okay, there are two people that have already left from the time that, so what makes you think that you're going to be the person who's going to succeed? And I think for me, the greatest drive has been to understand myself. As a person, I've got my own strengths. And one of them is, even when there's tension, I think I try to take away myself from the tension. I suck in the situation, and then I can explain better, and I don't really play the confrontational style. So that is something that has worked for me. Yes, the environment can be charged, but I don't try to change myself to actually suit the high energy levels that are in that office or in that building. So I think I've also tried very hard to ride on the network of media colleagues that I have known over time. I think they are spread in different institutions. It also helps me to get a second opinion. I know how to relate with different organizations. I can at least get by. I know where I don't do very well. I'm always counting on different people to tell me, no, maybe here you shouldn't have done this. But this is a job where it doesn't give you enough time to think through, because you always make mistakes. But I think honest mistakes are very easily forgiven. So I think one of the greatest strengths has been trying to ride on the relationships that we have built over time. And I also know that I've worked as a journalist, so it helps me sometimes to predict how the media will react to different things. And I try to meet them halfway, so that at the end of the day, we don't get sucked into these fights or whatever. We try and focus on things that are positive, because there are enough conflicts in our community.
And obviously you came at a time when maybe the senior national team is unable to qualify for the Africa Cup. I'm sure that has been the biggest, what can I say? Well, the biggest item to defend.
It can't be easy, but also sometimes it helps to reflect that it's not really the good things in life that build us. You have to experience low moments. You have to walk through low moments, because at the end of the day, those experiences will actually make ultimate success better. Because if you haven't fallen, obviously you won't really appreciate how good it feels to stand.
True.
So and whilst people look at the national team is comprised of different components. There are human beings there, there are individuals. You get to experience how they get to prepare. People just get to see, oh, the team has failed to qualify. But you walk through that journey with players who are human beings. You know that they also want to succeed. They've got other things in their private lives, so you get to appreciate the whole picture. It is not good, obviously, that we haven't qualified to the Africa Cup, because that is one of the highlights of the game. We all want to see our team at the Africa Cup. We grew up enjoying some of these, our football memories, obviously. Most of them came from watching Zambia at the Africa Cup. So there's no substitute. We all just have to keep working. We have to try to get Zambia back to the Africa Cup, because at the end of the day, that's what we all desire. If Zambia succeeds, it's not just people in sports who succeed. Everyone is going to be happy. And so we keep working. We are hopeful that, obviously, if we keep working hard, we are going to get back to where Zambia wants to be.
Great. As we end this interview, Sydney, are you a family man?
Definitely. I'm a very happily married man. I'm married to Gretchen Shimbulo, and we have 2 children. My son, Chabota Mungala, is 4 years.
Wow, and you looked elegant in that, both of you.
That was a very big day. And obviously, we are marching towards our 5th anniversary. It has been a very good ride so far. We also have our last born daughter, Lumba, who is 9 months.
So you have 2 kids.
Yeah, so those are the people that keep us busy. I really like to be home when there's no football going on. This is off season, and I try as much as possible to give the family time. I think we are always on the move most of the time. So it's always important that the little time that we get, I try to spend it with my family. Okay,
great. Let me now cross over to Julius Malulu, who give us what is trending. Julius.
Good evening, Monet.
Good evening. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. How are you doing this evening?
Yeah, very well, thanks. What's trending?
Yeah, interesting interesting things that we have that are trending in as far as social media is concerned, Modern. There's an interesting item, Modern. Our FAZ president, Andrew Kamanga, and one of the football administrators, that's Simata, actually had a meal together at some non-hotel. And I think for me, this is more than a good step in the right direction, really. We've seen so much attacks on the current FAZ president. So if we see such kind of things taking place, then really I know that we are in the right direction in as far as football development is concerned. So this is really a good thing, and I'm looking forward to see more of the football administrators that have been attacking the FAZ president to come on board and be able to support the current FAZ president that we have. Yeah, and then also we have quite a number of transfers that have been happening as far as football is concerned. Gabriel Jesus, former Manchester City striker, has moved to Arsenal now. He's joined the Gunners on a long-term contract. He's going to be there till 2027. So I'm hoping that he's going to be banging in those goals for Mikel Arteta and wishing him all the very best. So back home, Modern, in as far as the transfers are concerned, we have Chicken George Rwandamina, who's been appointed as Cabo Warriors a coach. Remember that Cabo Warriors have got a new chairman now, Mutalengandu. So looking forward to see how George Chicken Rwandamina is going to perform at Cabo Warriors. And then also today they did unveil their second assistant coach. That's Happy Sichikolo, who's going to be working with George Rwandamina. So we're looking forward to see who their first assistant is going to be. That's Cabo Warriors. And also looking at Zesco, one of the teams that's been making a lot of purchasing as far as players are concerned. Their recent purchase now is Kelvin Kapumbu, who's joined them on a 2-year contract deal from Zanaco, the bankers. And then we also have Cyril Mwenyechiwe, the South African-born goalkeeper who joined Zesco United. So these are some of the transfers that have been happening in as far as the Zambian Super League is concerned. And these are some of the items that we had in as far as social media gossip is concerned, Modern.
Thank you very much, Julius. Okay, so we end on a ball juggling note. Sydney Mungala, he shouldn't just be talking about football. Let him show us here. Sydney, there is the ball. Show us your ball juggling skills.
I hope I live up to your expectations.
Yes. Yeah? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. No, Sydney, actually, you play football. You are a professional footballer.
Well, I should have. Maybe in the next life, I'll be a star.
Indeed. So we end here, unfortunately. So, yes, I asked you about the communication managers. So the first one, I won't give you the answer now. Next week, I'll give you the answer. But the second was Nkweto Tembwe, followed by Desmond, right? Desmond Katongo, then Mwazi Chanda, then Sydney Mungala. Sydney is the 5th communications manager. So until next week, at the same time, but leave those messages. I'll read them next week. My name is Modern Tapechera Sinkara. Goodbye.